Imagine, a podcast series by Imagine Theatre.
Hello again and welcome to episode 38 of this podcast series from one of the biggest producers of pantomime and children's theatre in the UK. If this is your first time with us, I'm Martin Ballard and I'm your host.
For more information, go to their website at www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.
Now in episode 37 I was joined by TV and radio presenter, dancer, songwriter, YouTuber and influencer Parley Patel. So don't worry if you missed that or any of the other previous episodes with creatives, actors or behind the scenes tours at Imagine Theatre. You can catch up with them all because they are all still available. And don't forget to subscribe to the series so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. This time I'm here front of house at the Royal Spa Centre in Leamington Spa. It's photo shoot day and I've been joined again by Imagine's business and marketing director Sarah Bowden and husband managing director Steve Bowden. How are you both?
We're very well, thank you.
Hi Martin, good to see you again.
Oh, this is the busiest time of year. I guess it may not be the busiest, but it's certainly one of the busiest times of the year, isn't it? Because from now on, the pace really steps up.
Absolutely. It's like a train leaving the station, and the train gets faster and faster and faster as you go through the year. And this point is definitely one of those points when it feels like it has a bit of a boost of speed and it really picks up. So, yeah, we are absolutely full on, flat out for Panto. Even though people might think Panto is a couple of months away, in our world, it really isn't.
So here we are in September, Steve. Where are we now in the year in terms of the calendar and the countdown?
Well, it's really ramped up. We've obviously been able to capture all of our marketing assets today. It's been great to get all the casts back together because, of course, we have to remember we've not been able to do photo shoots for 3 years. You know, they've had to be done in isolation. So it's great to meet all the companies. And now those marketing assets are going to be sent out to the theatres and that the audiences are able to be encouraged and prodded to spend some money and book their tickets for Panto. You know, what's been really interesting this year particularly is the booking patterns that we all learnt about from previous Pantos have kind of fallen by the wayside. There's a lot going on in the world and people are booking Panto later. And what our job is to encourage them that Panto is still very much out there and that their money is safe and that they can come and have a really good Christmas Panto.
Well, you can hear in the background actors are coming and going because photo shoots are, coming to an end now, Sarah. That means that shows are pretty much cast, and that opens up a whole new area, doesn't it? Because it means all the paperwork, the contracts and so on have to be, put out there.
Absolutely. This is kind of the bit that people don't necessarily think about when it comes to Panto. It's all the contracts. Every actor has to have a formal employment contract. They then have to provide us with their costume measurements, and we have to make sure we've got the right costumes for them, the right shoes, the right tights, we've got all the right underwear, and every single individual has that. The children's licensing is pretty much, is well underway and very much almost complete. We have to get all the chaperones in place for the children. All of those have to have DBS or PVG checks. We have to get the chaperone licenses. The paperwork and the administration behind the scenes at this stage in the year is quite overwhelming. We've got a really big team of people back at head office just doing paperwork and all the bits that people wouldn't necessarily think sit behind a business like Imagine, but ultimately it's show business and there's the business element that has to be sorted before we can put on the show.
Obviously, there are lots of policies that any company has to have in terms of equal opportunities, how people behave and so on. That's something that is your particular area, and the paperwork for that is quite demanding in itself, but very important.
Oh, absolutely. We have all the same demands on us as a business that any other business would have. And many of my friends say, "Oh, your job is amazing," and I say, "I am the luckiest person in the world. I love my job. I love what we do, but I still have to do exactly the same as any other business. I have to keep the tax man happy, the VAT man happy, the health and safety man happy, the human resources has to be right. We have to have all the right duty of care in place for everybody, whether it be children or adults. All of that has to sit in place. And yes, that sits in my bag, and that's the bit that I spend most of my time doing. And people think, well, what does she actually do? And the answer is lots of paperwork.
Now, we've talked about this many times, Steve, but in the early days, it would have been a team of 2 or 3 people to do literally everything. That would never work now, given 18 or 19 shows, would it?
No, it wouldn't. And what's been brilliant is we've been able to expand our resource at head office, which has been able to coincide with people coming back to work after the pandemic. We've now got 30 people working full-time on the season at head office, plus a lot of satellite companies that are working in each of the venues production managers, lighting designers, sound designers for each production, as well as the directors and the choreographers and musical directors, are all working together now, making sure that the production that's going to go on the stage is the very best it can be. So a huge uplift in the number of people, and everybody is really busy. But the atmosphere and the sense of, collective working is enormous, and I think that's what makes me really proud every morning, is that we've just got a first-rate team in place.
The workshop, we haven't even mentioned what's going on in the workshop at the moment, because, that is really busy.
It is. What's been brilliant is having a partnership with my workshops has enabled us to build brand new sets as well as keep up to date with all our maintenance. We've got a brand new digital Panto, Beauty and the Beast, in Swansea. And people think that that's purely a screen-based show. Well, yes, screens are a predominant factor in it, but we still need to build the scenery that frames all that, and we still have all the flooring and all the special effects that are in that show. So the workshops are turning out that production. We're also building a brand new Peter Pan, and we've got a couple of other Pantos that we're building for other people as well. So the workshops are flat out. And we've had to invest in the machinery that goes in there, because pantomime has specific demands on particular types of machinery for scenic artists and carpenters. We've been able to invest in that to make, obviously, the work that we do there the very best it can be.
And this is on top of all the regular maintenance work for all the other sets and costumes and so on. Again, the pressure is mounting on that now, because we're getting ever closer. Actors will be having their fittings for costumes, and the sets have to be ready to go, don't they?
Absolutely, they do, yeah. So we've got a couple of brilliant people back in our office, Jason and Anna, whose job it is just to look after the maintenance of the sets and get the sets ready. We've got a fantastic wardrobe team headed up by Aaron while Dawn is on maternity leave. We've got Si and Esther and Adam and a whole raft of people down in the wardrobe department. Then we've got Glyn, our head of technical, he's looking after the tech. We've got Ruth and Em looking after our props, because Roz is on maternity leave. So we've got a couple of people on maternity leave as well this year, so a couple of lovely arrivals in the team as well, which is nice. So yeah, the team is absolutely flat out, and then we've got Callum and Dave as well, getting things prepared along with Amy. It's just absolutely full on, and we list these names off, and these are people who are all absolute experts in their field. They know exactly what they're doing, and we're really blessed to be working with people in the operations team, that's aside from our administration team, who absolutely 100% know what they're doing and are really, really skilled labour. So we count ourselves insanely blessed to work with a team like that.
The logistics themselves are interesting, because any company has a limited amount of space. Goodness only knows, it has to be meticulously planned to get sets in and out to be able to have the space to do the maintenance.
Oh gosh, yeah, Jason says to us every day he's playing Tetris. We were very lucky to take on a premises back in November 2011, which we thought would be big enough. But the company's expanded beyond our wildest dreams, really. We still pinch ourselves at the opportunities that have been passed our way. And we've got another big store now off-site, and we're going to have to take another big store on as well over Christmas. There's never enough room. The nature of what we do means that everything is big and bulky. The holding 20,000 costumes takes a lot of space. Holding what will probably be 45 complete pantomime sets takes a lot of space. All the flying carriages, they just take space because you can't get them in the air. They have to sit on the floor. There's a constant game of Tetris going on.
Must be great at Christmas, though. You'll have lots of space then when they're all out.
It's quite surprising, because you'd think that it would be really empty at Christmas, but even when everything's gone out, it still looks full, doesn't it?
Yeah, we can get the broom round there, and that's the great thing. We can put the broom round the corners, dust out all the kind of accumulations. There is always challenges with space in any business. I think you always fill the space that you have. I think one of the things that we're working on, because Imagine's got its kind of carbon neutral...
We're carbon neutral business now.
So what that is making us do is really look at how we store, how we transport. The developments of the kind of new generation of Pantos that we're creating will hopefully be able to improve the amount of carbon that we're using. And all of that just makes you think about the operation in a different sort of way. How can we just be more efficient in, energy usage is the big hot topic at the moment. And it's really important for all businesses, including theatre and performing arts, to address that as you go along. So that's one of the things that we're doing, looking at storage space, looking at how we maintain the level of stock that we have whilst being economical with the amount of storage that we need.
We'll return to energy in a moment's time, but in terms of the logistics, just explain how it works with getting all the sets and costumes out, because you can't have 18 trucks from 18 venues all turning up at Imagine on the same day, for instance.
The logistics probably are, well, they are. Dave's main focus of the director of operations is to make sure that we get all those sets out of the unit at the right time without grinding the industrial estate to a halt. But there are not only the shows that we're putting on, but there are also the hires that we have. And the planning of transport and making sure that lorries are loaded effectively, because it takes a couple of hours to load the lorries correctly and to make sure that the right sets are on at the right place, is a huge operation. There have been a couple of stories in my time over the years where we have had the phone call come in where we've discovered that we've delivered the wrong Giants to the wrong venue, or there is a piece of set somewhere that it shouldn't be. And on the whole, we've invested a lot in the data management system over the last few years to barcode every bit of set and prop and costume to make sure that those errors don't happen. Yeah. Because you are up against deadlines, and it's expensive. It's really expensive if you deliver something to the wrong place to get it to the right place. So the logistical exercise is probably, I'd say, the biggest part of the business in terms of that.
Oh, easily, yeah. I mean, as you touched upon, Martin, there's not just 18 lorries going out, because what happens at the start of each project is a lorry goes out with the costumes and the props on. Yeah. So that's 18 lorries of that, plus 18 set lorries. So that's 36 lorries before you even start. And then, as Steve said, we've got all the hires going out, and we can hire to an additional 40 or 50 productions. Before you know it, we could send 75 or 80 lorries out of our unit. And for those who've been to our Coventry store, you'll know that our yard isn't very big, and we've got one dock door. Yeah. So the logistics and the planning, sometimes we can load sets out 3 or 4 days early and store them on wheels to make sure that it's smooth running. The bigger challenge is when they all come back, because all the Pantos close at the same time and you've got to bring all those lorries back. These are the things that people don't necessarily realise. We also have to bring in a lot of casual crew to load those lorries. So we have to find staff to come in and work round the clock in different shifts, loading the lorries against the lists that Steve was talking about that we've barcoded out. So the logistics at head office, and that's without the loading of the wardrobe trundles and the loading of the props trundles and the loading of all the company managers' plans that have to go out as well, and the children's licensing. People don't quite realise the logistics of what goes on back at head office. They think we just put on shows, but they haven't thought about that detail behind.
And I suppose the other thing that then comes into play at this time of year is the weather, because we're doing pantomimes in North Wales, in South Wales, in North Scotland, across all of England, and invariably each year there's a fall of snow, and that can affect the ability for lorries to turn up. We've often watched the forecasts in Inverness where we do Panto, fantastic location, but there really, over the Highlands there can be heavy snow from November onwards, and there have been a couple of times where we've had to say, I think we need to load that set and get it on the road so that it can get up there in plenty of time. So you need to consider all of that, for not only our shows but the hirers as well.
I'm sure there are more funny stories of everybody opening up the boxes for Cinderella and there being no pumpkin, or missing lamp for Aladdin, or a beanstalk for Jack and the Beanstalk. Also, with the sets and the costumes and the props and everything, there are other things you send out that people may not understand or think about. The stage management kits, and of course COVID kits with testing kits and so on in. You think of everything.
Oh yeah, you send shivers down our spine when we think about the COVID from last year and the kits we had to send out and the testing. But yes, absolutely, we do have to think of everything, Martin. We have to pre-plan everything, particularly as Steve touched upon, if you're doing a venue like Inverness and we're based in Coventry. It's a day and a half's journey to get something up there, and if we've missed it, it's really pricey to get it up there. So we have to pre-plan so much. There's so much that goes in. I mean, simple things like we've already had to order thousands of pairs of tights because we have to provide tights to the children and the performers. Just those kind of logistics. Thousands of pairs of shoes. We've got so many pairs of shoes in the unit, and we have to sort out all the sizes and then order what we're missing. It's just a huge exercise that people would... You'd come and spend a day in our unit and be blown away by what we actually have to send and what we have to do.
We were talking earlier, I think it's 18 or 19 years that I've worked for you, and I can't remember ever having anything missing from my costume, so well done, because I could never get into JP McHugh's kit, for instance.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Martin. That's a big shout out to the wardrobe team, and as I say, all the operations team and the administration department headed up by Lou and Katie, and we've got a fantastic team there as well who just they're just on it. There's list after list after list after list, and they double and triple check it. Errors do happen, of course they do, when you're sending out the sheer volume of stuff that we are, but it's so minimal. I'm so proud of them.
Okay, I mentioned energy, Steve, and as if COVID wasn't enough, we're now, it's been labelled an energy crisis, a cost of living crisis, paying for bills and so on will have an impact this Christmas in many ways, won't it?
It really will, and I think it's our job as producers of theatre, but also as custodians of Panto, to try and address these problems, because it's really important that people get to go to the theatre. And there are price problems that people will find, that the tickets are potentially too expensive. And I think one of the exercises that we will do is to react and look at where we have capacity in our schedules and see if there's anything that we can do to enable audiences from all backgrounds to come and see our shows. One of the things that Sarah and I have been looking at and working with our colleagues in all the theatres that we work with, because this is a team effort, they're co-productions, we don't just turn up and do the show in the discussions, and potentially for next year, is ways that people can perhaps stagger the payments of their tickets. They can, they're not faced with a large bill at the point at which they book, which is often, particularly now, why people are struggling to be able to book, is they simply don't know what their financial circumstances will be. If we can do things to help that, staged payments, offer facilities where people can reserve their tickets and pay a small advance and then pay in small stages throughout the year, that has to be good for the industry and good for pantomime. So it's about us just reacting. The fuel bills alone for transport this year are eye-watering, and of course theatres and producers plan the ticket prices and plan 15 months in advance. When they go on sale, as the season starts, the next one goes on sale, we're already committing prices there. And of course, throughout the year, prices have increased for fuel, for raw materials, for transportation, and all those have a knock-on like they do in any business. Yeah. So, we will inevitably see rising prices, rising ticket prices. I think it's about making sure that there are affordable performances, making sure that people have the ability to pay in a way that is suitable for them, and trying to kind of tie all this together. We will get through it, but we're in no doubt that it's going to be a bumpy few years for the entire world, let alone Great Britain. But let's do what we can to allow people to still enjoy live theatre.
It's unfortunate for people coming to see shows. The whole of theatre will suffer because of this, but Christmas is the worst time of year. It's an expensive time of year anyway, isn't it? In terms of the venue as well, obviously the energy costs for heating, lighting and so on, but also at Imagine headquarters, it has a knock-on effect. And you've talked about the premises you have, Sarah. That's very expensive.
It's really expensive. Again, it's things that people don't think about. We've got a best part of 20,000 square foot industrial unit. We've got offices and we've got stores. The stores, we just can't heat them. They're just too energy inefficient. It's just impossible to heat them unless you have to heat a little localised area. But the offices, we're just the same as any other business. And as Steve touched upon, because we set the ticket prices 15 months ago, we weren't expecting this cost of living crisis when we set the ticket prices for the performances for this Christmas. So we're finding ourselves stuck between a rock and a hard place of trying to make sure we can afford to do what we're doing whilst making sure the tickets are affordable. Yeah. If every single business and every single individual is finding themselves in this same situation right now, all we can do is put our business heads on as the business part of the show business and make sure we deliver what the theatres need and what everybody needs, whilst also making sure everybody gets paid on time, making sure it's affordable. None of us expected this off the back of a pandemic, did we?
No, but you're absolutely right. It's a very fine line. Your expenses are going up dramatically. You can't drop ticket prices dramatically because it's just not cost effective. It's not good business sense.
That's right. I say to everybody, the cost of a ticket price is, and people go, gosh, they're really expensive. And you say, if only you could see what we have to pay for in that ticket price, then you'd understand why they are the price they are. And in fact, some Panto tickets are very affordable based upon the cost of putting a production on. These productions cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds to stage. They're not cheap, and I don't think people quite appreciate. It's nothing for a show to have a budget of £400,000 or £500,000 to put on. And it takes a lot of recouping back to get that money back. When you think that the VAT man's going to take his share off the top, then we have the theatre take their split before we, as producers, start to see our money. It's like any other business right now. We're just trying to balance everything.
Well, let's hope that people still do come in large numbers to all of the Imagine venues, Steve, but you have several new venues this year. That's a whole new area for you, meeting new people, new venue owners and managers and so on. How's that going?
Really well. What I think I really enjoy, and we are blessed in having some fantastic venue staff to work with. The staff in the venue are ultimately what makes the production a success or not. We do all the work in the background, but when we hand it over to the theatres, at the end of the day, it's the theatre's pantomime, and so it should be. It's not our pantomime, it's their panto. But there is, the whole logistics of bringing venue staff with varying degrees of skill together and our creative staffs. I find one of the most exciting parts, looking at where we can support them, where they can learn from us, we can learn from them, and using all that knowledge to kind of drive it all forward.
And the concerns, whether it be COVID or, the cost of living crisis, whatever, the concerns are always far outweighed by the joy of doing Panto, the excitement of doing it every year, and seeing the audiences back in the venues, and that will never go away.
I don't think it will. Panto is pretty robust. It's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's seen out, great conflict around the world, world wars, recessions, massive crises in the cost of living in generations. And theatre and pantomime has almost been a kind of unity. It's brought people together again. And I think, so long as we treat it with respect and treat the audience with respect and be careful and cautious, it will survive. We just have to adapt to the circumstances around us. And Panto always is a commentary on what's going on in the world. So inevitably, there will be references to all these crises that we're living through. And we come together and we celebrate and we laugh and we enjoy. And that's what Panto does.
And for you personally, it's obviously still a joy to produce Panto, Sarah. And for the next generation, we talked about your daughter Holly, who's a performer as well. We have to make sure that Panto is in a good place so that people like Holly and others after her have somewhere to perform.
Absolutely, Martin. So we took over from producers before us. They had to look after the medium of Panto. For us, we have that same duty of care. We are passing this down to the next generation. We're purely, as Steve said, the custodians right now. We have to recognise the fact that we have to future-proof it, because otherwise, where do the producers of the future come from? Where does the Pantos of the future come from? We have to leave it in a better state than we found it when we became producers, and that's our job. Yeah, and we think about Holly, our daughter. She's currently at Performing Arts School. She desperately wants to be a performer, but you never know, she might end up being a producer. She might not work in the industry at all. We have to leave it ready for her generation and generations beyond. But we are, as I said earlier, we are so lucky to do what we do. We have a job that we utterly love in an industry that we love, and hopefully this Christmas we'll actually get to see some shows, because last year we just couldn't get out and see them. So for us, it's kind of the first time maybe in 3 years that we will have what we feel like a proper Panto season, where we get out to see our casts, to see our shows, and the team feels like we're getting something back from the work that we're doing.
So you've not got much on at the moment. How's 23-24 season going, Steve?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because we've just literally in meetings now looking at the schedules and the titles and the pricing for the shows that are going to be coming up next year. It's a 15 to 18 month process to get a pantomime on, and we have great discussions with venues looking at what the right title is, what we think the ticket prices need to be, and obviously there's a huge amount of work going on with ticket pricing, as we've just touched upon. But there are some very exciting panto projects on the horizon, and I think next year will be hopefully a consolidation of the great work that we've done this year and in previous years, with a couple of new exciting projects lining up as well. It's always about trying to separate the now from the future, and Sarah and my jobs are very much about being strategic and looking to the future, whilst keeping an eye on what our team are dealing with at the moment. So yeah, my head is full of about 36 different pantos at the moment as we navigate our way through this season and next.
And finally, Sarah, you've been recruiting in all sorts of areas, from wardrobe to stage management. You're bringing new people into the profession as well, which is always a joy, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. I love working with new members of the team, both at head office and in shows. We are here to provide opportunity, and I think that's what made particularly 2020 so tough, was that we would normally provide, with the children and with the chaperones and with all the casts, around 1,000 job opportunities, and we weren't able to do that. And the fact that we have survived, we have, thank you to the Culture Recovery Fund and to everybody who supported theatre during that difficult time, we have survived, and those 1,000 job opportunities have come back, and that's something that I know we've been really, really proud of the fact that we have been able to redo that, but the industry as a whole has been able to redo that, and to give people that love of theatre back again, which is where we started. I remember my first Panto as a child. I had to develop a love of theatre, as Steve had to develop a love, and if we don't give that opportunity to develop those loves of theatre, there is no future for theatre.
And it's not just the audience members. One of the big kind of benchmarks that we pride ourselves on is giving opportunities to young people to be in the shows. You know, they can sit and watch it, but unless they get, if they're interested in it, they need to be given opportunities to get on stage and perform. And that's why we do open auditions. That's why we reach out to as many children in the area as possible and give them the chance to take part in the shows, because they are the generation of theatre practitioners, not just in Panto, but in the industry as a whole moving forward, when they decide what they'd like to do as careers. If they know what theatre is all about from an early age, they will embrace it. But also, they'll go and see it.
Yeah.
And that's really important. Pantomime doesn't just provide seasonal entertainment, it provides opportunities for our future performers and crafts people who will work in the industry.
It's great to see new faces working for Imagine every single year, backstage, but also on stage. Parley Patel in the last episode was so excited about working for Imagine for the first time, and that is absolutely great to see. I hope you both have a fabulous and event-free Panto season for Christmas 22-23. Thank you for talking to us.
Thanks, Martin. Take care.
Yeah, look after yourself.
And so we've run out of time again for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the series to catch up with any episodes you've missed so far, and make sure you don't miss out in the future. Next time, I'll be joined by the actor I've watched and known since he was a teenager. He's been with Imagine for almost 10 years and will be back at the Royal Spa Centre in Leamington Spa this Christmas. Sean Dodds joins me next time on episode 39. I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of Just Imagine, the podcast series from Imagine Theatre. And you can find out more by going to www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.